After Roger Moore's lengthy tenure as James Bond came to an end, a new actor was needed to fill his shoes. Considering how silly the series had become, it was high time to inject some intensity back into 007. This brings us to one of the more overlooked entries in the franchise, The Living Daylights. The tale begins with Bond protecting Georgy Koskov, a defector from the KGB. The latter warns MI6 that his superior, General Pushkin, has reactivated the KGB policy of Smert Spionom, which means death to spies. Having his doubts about Pushkin's true nature, Bond opts to investigate further. What he discovers is a conspiracy that threatens the Soviets as well as the entire world. As you can tell, an emphasis is put on the Cold War, because that won't be outdated in a few years. Okay, maybe that's an unfair criticism. After all, other stories like The Hunt for Red October have Cold War influences, and they've retained respect over the years. What matters to me is whether or not the script is any good, and thankfully, this one is. Questions about loyalty to one's country and how much priority that takes over one's own judgment are explored here, which is something that you might not expect from a James Bond flick. This gives the material a certain amount of thematic weight and gravitas. Unfortunately, the movie is occasionally hampered by stupid stuff like this. Oh boy. It seems like the writers sometimes want this story to be taken seriously and other times not so much. Maybe they were paying tribute to the campier days of 007, but including moments like this just prevents the more poignant scenes from resonating as strongly. If the script focused more on political intrigue and less on cheesy antics and spy genre cliches, then I think we'd have a great movie with a clearer idea of its own identity. In spite of this glaring issue, the film is crafted fairly well. The action is exciting and well shot, with some of the stunt work and large-scale set pieces really managing to impress. The European architecture and vast landscapes are a feast for the eyes, and director John Glenn is able to give the picture a classically graceful atmosphere at times. In addition, he balances this with a more stylish tone that will feel instantly familiar to fans of the franchise. However, did he choose the right man for Bond? Well, while he's definitely not perfect, Timothy Dalton is a decent 007.
Thanks.
He injects a welcome intensity and sharpness back into the character, not taking any nonsense from anybody. His steely-eyed determination and imposing presence make him one of the more formidable versions of Bond that we've seen. The downside is that he struggles with delivering the one-liners and conveying the suave charisma. His quips just don't feel natural, which is a shame, but not enough to ruin the character. Dalton is still very believable as a skilled secret agent. In addition, John Rhys-Davies brings a grim conviction to his role as Pushkin, making the most of his limited screen time with his subtly solemn performance. Similarly, Art Malik is fairly likable, possessing the presence to be convincing as a leader and even injecting a bit of sly humor into his performance. Of course, we also have Desmond Llewellyn returning in typically entertaining fashion as Q. Even after years of playing this character, he still possesses the energy, sarcasm, and sense of timing that made him so endearing in the first place. The only disappointing aspect about these three is that they're not around for very long. It wouldn't be such a problem if the rest of the cast left the same positive impression. Mariam Dabo is fine, having appealing chemistry with Dalton, but she's ultimately let down by the script. She's not exactly one of the better Bond women out there, mostly because she exists primarily as a love interest for other characters. We briefly touch on her musical aspirations, but that always comes second to her relationships and skill set, which are used to move the story along. She never really gets much development beyond this. What's even more disappointing is that there's not a lot to the villains either. They're not awful, they're just thinly drawn and a little cartoonish at times. Jeroen Krabbe, I'm sorry if I got his name wrong, plays a cowardly weasel. He does it well, but we never see much beyond that. Likewise, Joe Don Baker generates a few chuckles, mainly because he's doing an exaggerated version of his performance from Edge of Darkness, but his character is mostly devoid of depth. Speaking of Edge of Darkness though, why didn't Bob Peck ever play James Bond? Now he would have been a force to be reckoned with. I'm getting off track. How's the title song? Wow, you can definitely tell it was made in the 80s. That might rub some people the wrong way, but I'm not gonna lie. Even though it doesn't have the finesse of other tracks like Goldfinger, I kinda like it. On top of featuring some energetic vocals by Aha, yes, that's their real name, it has a stylish beat that you can dance to. Also impressive is the score, which we've come to expect at this point. However, this is actually John Barry's last time providing the music for a James Bond film. I have to say, he gives us a pretty memorable swan song, mixing the slow, elegant style of previous entries with a faster, more percussion-based approach. At the end of the day, The Living Daylights admittedly suffers from an underdeveloped supporting cast and occasional identity issues, but it makes up for these flaws with skillful performances, accomplished action, catchy music, capable direction, and a somewhat deeper and more intense take on 007. Thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe, and/or comment. Until next time.